Sheryl Crow's success in the 90s almost didn't happen. Her debut record sat in limbo, she almost lost her recording contract, and despite the success of her first record, it soon created a media firestorm with some of her earliest musical collaborators speaking out against her. Today, let's talk about the career of Sheryl Crow. Born in Kennett, Missouri, population 10,000, Sheryl Crow was a self-professed moody music geek growing up. She'd want to know all the lyrics and wanted to know who played what part on each album. Her parents were also encouraging getting her piano lessons at the age of 6. Her father was a lawyer and trumpeter, and her mother was a piano teacher and music enthusiast. Crow would attend the University of Missouri, majoring in music piano performance with a secondary degree in education. It was following school that she joined a cover band where she was the only woman, a group that was called Kashmir. She would cite her influences growing up as being the Rolling Stones, Fleetwood Mac, and Rod Stewart. I'm guessing Led Zeppelin is somewhere in there as well. She would end up landing a job as an elementary music teacher in the St. Louis public education system by the mid-80s. She was making about $17,000 a year, and she would get engaged to the guitar player in her band who was a born-again Christian. The plan was that she'd live the rest of her life in Missouri and have a family and live happily ever after, but things didn't really work out that way. The engagement would be broken off after Crow's fiance told her that if she wasn't going to sing for the Lord, then he couldn't be with her. Despite her fiance's comments, Crow loved playing in bands and didn't back down. One of her first big breaks would be doing a jingle for a McDonald's commercial that was originally only supposed to be shown regionally in and around St. Louis, but soon that commercial got picked up nationally. Crow would admit that for 45 minutes worth of work, she made a whopping $42,000, which was more than she had made after 2 years of teaching. It was at this point in time that she relocated to Los Angeles, thinking that she could make it big in the jingles business or doing commercials. She'd go home on a Tuesday and tell her parents that she was leaving for Los Angeles on Sunday. She was 24 at the time and had a good amount of determination. She had never been to really any other city except St. Louis, so she was obviously overwhelmed by the sights and sounds of Los Angeles. She would live by the beach with several friends during her early days, and one of the first things she did was get a list of all the studios in LA and a map, and she would take her demo tape with her commercials she cut and a few songs to the studios to see if she could land any work. However, she soon began questioning her decision to move to LA after going into a studio one day and coming out and seeing a boot on her car. She had no money at the time to get her car back. She would end up doing what everyone else was doing at the time who came to Los Angeles in search of their dreams. She would wait tables at a jazz club called Le Cafe. It was a pretty popular place where well-known musicians and industry people would frequent, and a guy walked in one day named Les Hooper, who actually was a commercial producer. Crow would give him her tape, knowing that she could be fired for doing such a thing, which she was the next day. But Hooper heard the tape and he loved it. He would actually end up getting her job, a national commercial for car maker Toyota, which paid a whopping $67,000. She was finally able to get her car back. She even started getting other studio work at the time and even landed a TV part on a show called Cop Rock, a detective show that was a musical. Of course, didn't last very long. Now, to give you guys a timeline, this was 1990, and it was about a year prior in 1999 that she would buy a 4-track recorder, and she would do covers of Shaka Khan and Heart, while also writing her own songs on keyboard and programming drums. Then Sheryl Crow got her big break. She had gotten word that Michael Jackson was holding auditions for his upcoming Bad tour, and she got a gig as a backup singer. She soon got a passport, boarded a 747, and left America for the first time to go to Japan to do some shows in front of 55,000 fans. One of Crow's most surreal moments on the tour happened off stage when she got a call one day from Jackson asking if she wanted to hang out afterwards and watch some movies, one of which was Amos and Andy, and also hanging out with them was Michael Jackson's pet monkey Bubbles. Crow would share the stage with Jackson as the pair would duet the song I Just Can't Stop Loving You, which happened night after night. The onstage chemistry between the pair soon led to the tabloids writing stories that her and the King of Pop were an item, with some tabloids going as far as saying that they were actually going to get married and that she was going to have his baby. It was on that 18-month tour that Crow would meet her longtime manager, who was working as a liaison between Pepsi and the Jackson tour. Another person that she would meet on the tour who would be instrumental in her career would be Jackson's musical director, and Sheryl soon became a musical sponge, learning a lot about writing and composing, and even expanding her guitar playing capabilities as well. Crow soon got the attention of Michael Jackson's manager, a guy named Frank DeLeo, who wanted to take on the task of managing her, but Crow would admit that she was constantly sexually harassed by him. When the manager threatened to end her musical career if she didn't go along with it, she would end up turning to a high-powered entertainment attorney who simply told her to stick it it out, since a lot of people would love to be in her position. It was following that tour in 1990, Crow returned home and spent about 5 to 6 months in a deep depression. Despite getting the gig of a lifetime working with Michael Jackson, it didn't really translate to her getting a recording contract. In 1989, Crow began working on the demos for what would have been her first solo record, and her publishing company introduced her to a guy named Kevin Gilbert, who was fronting the group Toy Matinee. She would join the group in 1990, and the pair soon started dating. Gilbert would introduce Crow to a group of musicians called the Tuesday Night Music Club. They would hang out, they would write and record songs, and simply philosophize about life and the world. One of the people who was at the Tuesday Night Music Club was a producer named Bill Bottrell, who had a studio where they recorded their songs. Bottrell took an immediate liking to Crow's musical talents, and the pair soon started to write songs together, but the songwriting relationship soon made Kevin feel like he was the odd man out, and Sheryl and Kevin's relationship fell apart. One of the songs that the pair first wrote together was from a poet named Wynn Cooper, who had a poem called Fun that started with the line, "All I want to do is have some fun." Crow would write the song inspired by the poem, but she thought the song was maybe worthy of being a B-side. Another song that was written during this time was called Leaving Las Vegas, which was inspired by the book of the same name, which was of course later turned into an Oscar-winning movie. One of the members of the Tuesday Night Music Club was a musician, David Berwald, who was drinking buddies with the author John O'Brien, who wrote the book. The song, if you've looked at Sheryl Crow's first album, then you'll notice a lot of the songwriting credits are shared by herself and a lot of the guys in the club that she was in. We'll talk a little bit more about the controversy that ensued in a bit. But despite getting in front of a lot of record labels, virtually everyone turned down Sheryl Crow. Her luck, however, would change when she met a producer named Hugh Padgham, who had hired her for a studio session. Crow gave him her demo tape, to which he listened to and loved it. But he also had a relationship with A&M Records, and that led to Crow getting a record deal. Al Cafaro, who ran A&M at the time, would recall first meeting her to Rolling Stone saying she was a very strong person with an ultimate overriding confidence in herself, but constantly assessing where she was at and what's going on. She's introspective and a complex person who can be different parts of herself at different times. That's what provides the heat, the attraction, the power. But those initial sessions for her first studio record in 1991 didn't go quite as planned. Since it was the first time that Sheryl Crow was really the main focal point in a studio recording, she was working with a veteran producer, and she really didn't speak up about what she liked or what she didn't like musically. The end result was an album that A&M chose not to release after spending nearly $500,000, with Crow admitting that the record sounded too slick, overproduced, and polished. With her record in limbo, she was now starting to hear rumblings that she might lose her recording contract, so she would seek out producer and friend Bill Bottrell. Soon enough, she had a tape with 4 songs on it, one of which was Leaving Las Vegas and Strong Enough, as well as What I Can Do For You, which was actually written from the perspective of Michael Jackson's manager. She would even name check Jackson's manager in the Na 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 song. She would take that tape to the record label and told them that these were the types of songs that she wanted to do, and she hit the studio once again. When her debut album Tuesday Night Music Club was officially released in August of 1993, it wasn't an immediate hit. In fact, the album took nearly 7 months to make a mark, and the first 2 singles really didn't go anywhere. It really wasn't until they released a single, All I Want to Do, and her first late night TV appearance on David Letterman that things started to change. The single, for its part, would peak at number 2 on the Hot 100 charts. Another single from the album would be Leaving Las Vegas, which was a modest success. The song, like I said before, took its inspiration from the book of the same name, and it's about an alcoholic who drinks himself to death in Las Vegas, and it would be based on author John O'Brien's own life. It was during the writing sessions for the song David Berwald actually asked his friend O'Brien if they were able to use the name of his book for the song, to which he agreed to do, provided he received some credit down the road if it was ever officially released. Sheryl Crow, however, claimed that she was unaware of this promise, so when she appeared on David Letterman in the spring of 1994, she would perform the song, and in a rare instance, she would actually be interviewed by David Letterman, something that wasn't super common for musical artists at the time who appeared on the show. But the interview didn't go well at all. When Letterman asked her if the song Leaving Las Vegas was autobiographical, she simply said yes, when in fact later in the interview she stated she had never lived in Las Vegas. It was a few weeks after that appearance that the author of the book took his own life. While his family came out years later and stated that Crow wasn't responsible for his death, at the time the press jumped all over the story. One publication went as far as calling Sheryl Crow, and I quote, ruthless and grabby. O'Brien was so incensed that he never got any credit for the title in Crow's interview, as as were the players in the Tuesday Night Music Club who co-wrote the song. David Berwald would end up writing a scathing piece in the LA Weekly shortly afterwards, accusing Crow of causing him to betray his longtime friend. There were also many people wondering, despite the success of Sheryl Crow's first album, whether she was the real deal or whether she was riding someone else's coattails. It was over the next several years she landed a spot on the stage at Woodstock 94, and at the 1995 Grammys, she beat out Bruce Springsteen for Record of the Year and won Best New Artist and Best Female Vocal Performance for All I Want to Do. Despite the controversy, her debut record sold an astounding 7 million copies in America and over 12 million copies worldwide. It was during the making of the Leaving Las Vegas video, Crow got into a relationship with the casting director for the video, who she actually ended up getting engaged to. But being on the road and being a working musician complicated their relationship, and they soon split afterwards. That relationship would provide some of the inspiration for the songs that wound up on Crow's second record. With her second record, the singer claimed that she had something to prove, telling Rolling Stone in 1996, "There's been enough reference to the old record and those guys lashing out at me. It's unfortunate in some ways that the record did so well because I lost friends over it. It all comes from the place of how much did she do on her last record. I think it's just something that I'm going to suffer. This bruise in the apple, until 3 or 4 albums from now, it's not anything I can't tolerate. It just makes me mad sometimes because I know where it's coming from. It's just a lot of bitterness," she would remark. For her second album, Crow would once again team up with Bill Bottrell and headed down to New Orleans to record their second album. There was a massive amount of pressure this time to prove something, but the tensions between Bottrell and Crow led to him leaving the project pretty early on. She would soon reach out to guitarist Jeff Trott, who was actually about to hit the road with the Wallflowers, but he would end up changing his plans and came into the studio and started working with Crow. Sheryl Crow would also produce her second album, and it would be released in the fall of 1996. But much like her first record, the album was met with 2 big controversies. While Crow would tell Rolling Stone that the goal of her second album was to, and I quote, "to get under people's skin because I was feeling like I had so much to hurl at the tape." Those bad feelings of the Tuesday Night Music Club would once again resurface when Crow's ex-boyfriend Kevin Gilbert was found dead due to autoerotic asphyxiation. Entertainment Weekly would pen an obituary that simply referred to him as Crow's piano player, and Berwald would later write an obituary piece that said he hated that Sheryl Crow record and that's all he's going to be known for. Meanwhile, a San Francisco newspaper would pen a detailed obituary about Gilbert, citing some of his journal entries where he wrote, and I quote, "I don't know if I can ever forgive her. I don't hate her. I'm just so disappointed." The article would go on to state that Gilbert's Tuesday night cohorts described Crow, who refused to be interviewed for the story, as, and I quote, "marginally talented singer who exploited his skills and theirs in a ruthless grab for success." Crow would remark to a Dutch journalist that she wasn't entirely surprised by Gilbert's death, saying, "Kevin was one of the most self-destructive people I've ever met. I don't want to go into this too much, but it wasn't a nice story." That wasn't the only controversy that Crow had to deal with, as she has long been a strong advocate for gun control, and she would write a song called "Love is a Good Thing," and the song's lyrics suggested that the retail giant Walmart was selling guns to kids, which the store obviously took offense to. Walmart refused to stock the album unless the lyrics were changed. One report was that Walmart wanted the lyrics changed to its competitor Kmart, but Crow wouldn't back down. Crow is said to lose about 400,000 album sales as a result of Walmart not carrying the record. You have to remember, in small town America, the only place to really buy albums at that point in time was Walmart, so if you couldn't get the record, you'd have to drive somewhere else or you simply wouldn't get it. Crow wouldn't back down, and her label backed her up. The second record was still a success, but it sold about half as many copies of what its predecessor did. Despite this, it still produced a slew of singles, and If It Makes You Happy, Every Day's a Winding Road, and A Change Would Do You Good. Crow would end up joining the traveling all-female tour known as Lilith Fair. If you guys haven't seen it on my channel, I've actually done a whole video on the history of Lilith Fair. The link is down below. The mid-90s would prove to be a big time for female artists, as you had Sarah McLachlan, you had Alanis Morissette, Meredith Brooks, Fiona Apple, and so forth. Her follow-up record, 1998's The Globe Sessions, would be another multi-platinum success. It was during the millennium that there was a lot of major record labels consolidating and merging, and Interscope would merge with A&M, and Crow all of a sudden didn't feel like a priority anymore. She was also dealing with major bouts of depression and writer's block. But she would persevere, releasing her 2002 record, Come On, Come On, which was another smash hit. I remember working at a grocery store in high school, and I kid you not, Soak Up the Sun was on constant rotation that summer. It was in 2005 she returned with Wildflower, an album Crow admits went in a much less commercial direction, but artistically, it was an album that she felt like she needed to do. At the time, the labels were pushing female artists who were half her age, since she was now in her early 40s, but she'd sold enough records that her label was pretty supportive of her. It was during the mid-2000s she was involved in a high-profile relationship with cyclist Lance Armstrong and got engaged, but they broke up in 2006. A few weeks later, she was about to hit the road to support the record, but she'd be diagnosed with cancer. Thankfully, she would win her battle with cancer and become an advocate for breast cancer awareness. She'd return with Bill Bottrell with 2008's appropriately titled Detours, chronicling the last several years of her life. In the 2010s, she's put out several more records, with her most recent coming in 2019, called Threads, which featured appearances by Don Henley, Joe Walsh, Sting, Stevie Nicks, Willie Nelson, and Keith Richards. And to top it off, this past weekend, Sheryl Crow was just inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. That concludes today's video, guys. Thanks for watching. As always, if you have suggestions for future topics, use the link in the description box below, and we'll see you again in Rock and Roll Stories. Take care.